Hey guys, it's Monica at Academic Phoenix Plus, and welcome to a UV mapping tutorial requested by subscribers like you. In this video tutorial, we are going to cover how to UV map this cute little healing droid using all the tools in Autodesk Maya. In the previous tutorials, you can actually watch how I modeled it and also how to textured it, but between that, I kind of skipped the UV mapping part. By popular demand, I am creating this video to show you how I UV mapped this multi-pieced droid. If you are new to my channel, I post tutorials on a weekly basis. Software includes Maya, ZBrush, Substance Painter, and so much more. So if that is your sort of thing, please consider subscribing. So bring out that creativity, open up that software, and let's go ahead and get started in UV mapping this cute little healing droid inspired by Star Wars. All right, so here we go. We're gonna get started with automatic mapping. You're gonna see that this becomes a pattern. So I'm gonna do automatic mapping because this is a very simple object. Then I'm gonna start selecting edges, and then I'm going to shift right click, and then I am going to stitch. It's all about that shift right click. You can see that I'm trying to align it to make sure that it's a little bit straight. And then I'm going to go ahead and select more edges, shift right click, and then stitch together, and just making sure that those seams fit. So the goal here is to try to get as less seams as possible. So right now what I'm doing is selecting edges and actually sewing because I don't want any little loose pieces. So that's looking pretty good. And I'm going to move on to the next part, which is going to be cleaning up the edge flow. So you can see that I'm not really a fan of stair stepping, so I'm going to actually select my edges, cut them where I want them to be, and then I'm going to sew the edges on the other side, and that's going to help make it look better. And don't forget to unfold. Unfolding is one of the biggest things that I use. Anytime I make any changes, I'm going to select the faces and I'm going to unfold. Okay, so the eyeball has an end gone, which is no bueno. I'm going to clean it up really quickly by just grabbing the multi-cut tool and going across, because when you have end gons, it could cause some issues. So I'm going to go ahead and delete faces that I don't need, such as the inside of the eye, and then I'm going to change everything back to 0 because I have frozen the transformations before. So if you have frozen the transformations, that means you can move it, make some changes, and then continue from there. All right, so I decided that I'm going to planar map the eyeball itself, the lens, and then I'm going to actually use cylindrical mapping to do the rest of the eye. So you can see that I am trying to grab those faces, and I'm going to try cylindrical mapping, and this time I'm going to actually select the little T, and you can actually use the attribute editor and type in a value. So now I have this, and I'm going to go ahead and unfold it. I have multiple pieces, and that's okay. And again, I like to look at the grid to make sure that everything's looking good. Let's go ahead and go to the other eye. Again, I'm going to be using the automatic mapping, and I'm going to be selecting edges and stitching them together. If this is a little too fast for you, I do encourage you to go ahead and check out my UV mapping tutorials where I go over every single tool, explain every single step by step. At this point, I assume you guys already know how to do this. Basically, you're going to see a lot of similarities, which is I'm going to project, then I am going to unfold, then I'm going to stitch some edges together, unfold some more, and then double check to make sure everything's aligned correctly. So here I think that's going to work, and making sure that everything's looking nice, and also sewing those edges because the less edges I have, the better I'm off. So that's going to be good, and then move it out of the way. All right, so this is very similar. This is also a cylinder, so I'm going to go ahead and use the cylindrical mapping. You can see that I'm going to open up the attributes and actually type in a value, and that's going to give me the projection that I need. Now again, I have some unwanted faces, so I'm going to isolate, select, and delete those faces, and now I am unfolding and trying to see if I can get it to actually align straight. As you can see, it kind of arcs it, and there we go, and I'm going to move it aside. All right, for the arm, again, I'm going to do automatic mapping. I like to test out automatic mapping first before I do anything else, just to see if it's too many pieces, I'll probably do it myself. But as you can see, because this is a hard surface object, it's pretty easy to use automatic mapping. So as you notice, I did the exact same thing. I automatic mapped, I stitched my edges together, and now I'm trying to make sure that everything is attached so I can avoid as many seams as possible. There we go. Unfold, unfold, and now I have another piece done. This one's going to be really easy. It's going to be a planar map, and then I'm going to be unfolding, so that was easy. And then this one is also very similar. I'm going to use automatic mapping, and I'm going to stitch the edges. Now the key here is to make sure that you stitch it, the seams are actually in places that are hard to see. You don't want to put the seam at the front or in a very visible place. If you need a seam, you're going to put it in places that are hard to find, such as the back or the inside of the mesh, things like that. So you can see here that I'm working on the bottom part of the arm, or the elbow-ish. And again, I'm trying to see where I'm going to put the seam. And you'll notice that I'm trying to make sure that the seam is on the back. And I don't want to put it anywhere that you can possibly see it, because seams are a little bit challenging and they can produce some really funky textures. So I'm going to stitch the length of the elbow, and you can see that I'm trying to attach as many as I can. I unfolded it, rotated it, and move it aside. This is just a simple box, so I'm going to again use automatic mapping, and then I'm going to select those edges, stitch together, if I can find the right edge. And then sometimes you just gotta use the UVs, and sometimes you gotta use the 3D model to grab the edges that you need. This one, I'm going to try automatic mapping. I don't think it's great, so I'm going to move the circular ones around, and then I'm going to cylindrical map the body, which is exactly what I need. Once I have what I need, I'm going to move it out of the way. All right, so in this case, I'm going to try to clean up the mesh a little bit because there is an end gone, and I might as well clean it up while I'm here. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can find those 4 edges and go across. Now, what I was trying to do was, as you can see, I have the symmetry on to object X, so whatever happens on one side will happen on the other. Hopefully. And if it doesn't work, then I deleted one side, and then I'm going to mirror it to the other side, and it's going to be UV mapped. There we go. Easy peasy. Turn off that symmetry. All right, the antenna. That one is also a cylindrical map, so as you can see. And I am going to move the cylindrical mapping, unfold it, and just kind of get it in a good location. Now I am trying to do this fast, so there's some things that I'm skipping, such as the top and the bottom of the antenna, but I'm going to move on because no one's really going to see that. And again, if this was an industry piece, I will definitely be spending a lot more time on my UVs, making sure that everything's perfect. But in this case, because this is so fast, I'm just very quickly creating my UVs. You'll notice that the edge of my object is facing inward towards the antenna, so that's going to be really important. All right, next is going to be the little light. That one I tried automatic mapping, and I noticed that there is a face that I don't need, such as underneath the light, so I deleted it using UVs. So the UV editor is actually really helpful because you can actually select faces, edges, all sorts of stuff using the UVs. I planar mapped the top, and then I'm cylindrical mapping the body, and you can see that I'm getting some really nice results. Again, I like to stitch things together because even if it's just one edge, just because you never know what's going to happen. Now I'm going to delete that bottom face, and the reason why is because I'm going to transfer my UV. So I'm just select one as UV mapped, select the other one as not UV mapped, and then go to Edit Mesh, Transfer Attributes. All right, this one's easy. So now let's look a map. And now we're moving down. That's been UV mapped, and that needs some attention, right? So the perspective views are always really helpful. Go ahead and project in the X, move those out of the way. And then with the rest of the faces that you can select, you can use a cylindrical map. You're going to see a lot of cylindrical maps here at this little robot. I'm going to be rotating this 90 degrees in hopes that it looks good. I'm going to try to get the best that I can. And of course, as always, I'm going to unfold and unfold, and then shift right click, unfold, unfold, and that usually gives me the results that I want. Again, I'm going to grab those edges, and you'll notice that it didn't stitch very well, and that's because the UVs are facing the wrong way. So you just have to flip it and then sew it, and there you go. Here's another one that's going to be using I feel like I need a song for this. It's like project, cut, sew, unfold, something like that. So because it's basically the same thing. This is very fast, but I actually end up being very relaxed when I UV map because it's so almost like brain numbing. I remember the first time I started UV mapping, I was like, this is the worst. But now that I know how to UV map, it's actually pretty relaxing. So I find it very lethargic. Again, I'm deleting faces that I don't need, and then which cleans up my UVs. Now you'll notice in this particular UVs, there's like a little bit of a stair step, and I'm not a big fan of that. So I'm going to cut those edges. It's kind of like a piece of paper. I'm going to cut those edges, sew the edges together, and then unfold. So it's a nice, clean seam. I don't need like stair steps in my seams. I need them to be nice and clean. Now for this one, again, I like to, even if it's just a little bit, this is kind of like my thing really, but I really wanted all the pieces to be together, so I don't get too many floating pieces and I don't know where they come from. So in this case, for the paper, I'm going to unfold, and it's really easy. Lucky for me, you'll notice that the numbers are backwards, so I flipped it around because I want to make sure those values are read correctly. All right, for the bottle, again, you kind of look at the overall shape and then just kind of UV map it based on that shape. So this is a cylindrical map, and there you go. Pretty simple. Unfold. I'm not a big fan of the way it looks, so I'm going to do my own edges. I'm going to go ahead and select the edges at the bottom, and I'm going to cut them where I want them to be. And again, I'm going to unfold in hopes that it fits a little bit better. Now, this is a very small piece of the robot, so I'm not a little too worried, but I do plan to add some detail to it, so it is important that it looks a little bit nicer. So I'm going to be unfolding and trying to get it to straighten out a little bit more. Here I'm going to be cutting a little bit more of the edges to see if I can get it to look a little more straight, and I think that's going to rotate it to make sure that texture is facing the right way, and there you go. So that one was a little cheap way of doing it. Probably could have done a better job in that one. Again, you're not going to see it very well, so I wasn't going to spend too much time on it. So for this one, it's a little more complicated than I expected it to be because it has this extrusion inside of it. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time trying to figure out, like, okay, where do I sew? Where is the best place to put the seam? And you're going to see that I struggle a little bit, but that's okay. The whole point is to try to get the best UVs as I can and try to hide the seam as much as possible. Again, I'm going to be deleting faces that I don't need because this is a cylinder. It had faces in the inside of objects and I don't need to see it, so why spend the time? Again, I'm kind of isolating select now because I'm struggling with the UVs here, and I'm selecting faces or edges so that I can sew. And you can see that it's getting a little crooked, but at least they're now connected. Now, I'm not too worried about this particular piece because, again, this one is going to be a small and there's a lot more details in the overall body, but I still want the UVs to be decent. I don't want it to have too much of a stretch texture. So there you go. It's not perfect, but it kind of works. As you can see, that's a little crooked. I'm stitching some edges. I'm unfolding, hoping that I can get it to look a little bit more straight. And then stitching edges that I feel like it needs to find a home, like the bottom of the cylinder here. And then finally, these faces, you don't even see. They don't even have UVs. So I'm going to delete them and make the problem go away. There you go. Again, try to unfold in hopes that this will straighten out a little bit more. Those are the best results I'm going to get so far, so moving forward. All right, make sure to delete the history, freeze the transformations, and all that jazz, because if you don't, it's extra information that you don't need. So I am going to go and same story with this one. Actually, this one's a little bit different. I'm planar mapping on the side. I'm going to cut in the center of the piece, and then I'm going to separate them, flip one of them, and then attach one edge, and that's how you get this really quick result, which is awesome. Well, this one's not hard. This is a cylinder, so it's one of those things that you can quickly UV map. Now, unfortunately, I didn't planar map the other one, so I'm going to go ahead and planar map these, and that's going to look a lot better. There you go. It's a little crooked. Let's go ahead and make sure that it's at least a little bit straight. So again, the purpose of that is if I put on textures, it will be predictable. Now I'm going to transfer attributes here because it's really quick. And then for this one, it's very similar. I'm going to go ahead and rotate it. And then of course, unfold it. This is going to be the same cylinder over and over. So I'm going to transfer my UVs, and hit the letter G, which is your last command. The foot is a little bit more interesting because it's got a variety of shapes. Overall, it's just a box. So in this case, I'm going to be stitching edges as much as I can so that I have as little seams as possible. So I'm going to be going into the beveled edges here and stitching them together. So again, I don't want the seam to be in front of the character, such as the front of the foot. I'm trying to put the seam at the back of the foot, which is a lot less noticeable. So again, sometimes you gotta zoom in really close and sew in those seams because you don't want those little floating things. You don't want floating edges, it just causes a little bit extra noise that, you know, might be noticeable. Even if it's small, it might still be noticeable, and that you're trying to avoid that as much as possible. In this case, I'm going to scale this down and just kind of fit it in because I can't really attach that little indentation, but I want to make sure that everything fits. Okay, now the nice thing about this is that I'm transferring UVs to the other side. So since the left side and the right side are the same, the only thing I have to do is select one, select the other, transfer UVs, and now I'm just clicking G, which is the last command. So sometimes there's a little weirdness like here, like the faces get split and it's very strange. I'm not really sure what causes the UVs to split like that. I still haven't figured out why. Something about the mirroring messes it up. So I double check to make sure that all of them are not having that similar problem. Again, I'm gonna be transferring the UVs here. And make sure that when you transfer your UVs, you're using component mode. So when UVs don't transfer because the geometry has been changed, the easiest thing you can do is just duplicate it. So that's exactly what I did. I duplicated the model, and I am going to what I'm doing is using the old model as reference so that I can get the scale, the location, and everything. And then I can delete the old one and add the new one. There are a little bit of changes I need to do because the little box that it's holding, it's actually bigger. So I need to make my selections and try to make it fit a little bit better. It's way faster. Same thing with this one. I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate another one and place it in. These little packages, unfortunately, you don't really see in the render, but every single one of them is UV'd, but it's really easy. It's just a planar map. No one's gonna see the back, so I just did an overlap, and now I'm just selecting each little package and just going G. Now this is gonna be the same case. I'm just gonna unfold, and then I'm going to just do the same thing, G. There it is. It's a big UV mess, but the magic is there. So again, don't forget to center the pivot, delete the history, freeze the transformations. And now we're going to do what's called a Texel Density. Type in the map size, which I put in 2048. You're going to click on Get, you're going to click on Set, and then it's going to put everything into the same texel density. That means that everything is going to be in the exact same grid. So all the texture information is going to be the same. It's not like some sections have more texture than others. Now, in some areas, you can have more texture than others, such as the body, the eyes, the main part of the character. Again, take a look at the texel density, do it again, and I'm going to move him aside because it's got too many pieces. Okay, I noticed that the shoulder was not UV mapped, so I just duplicated it and moved it to the other side. Sometimes it's just a lot easier to place it instead of trying to re-UV map something. So select all of your objects. Again, use that texel density. And then what's really nice is that Maya actually has a layout button. Grab your UVs, and you can see that we do have a couple of flipped UVs because I duplicated it and flipped it to the other side. So we can, I'm actually going through and just flipping the colors. Anything in red should be flipped to blue, unless you purposely left it. So again, I'm going to get and set my texel density, and then I'm going to click on layout, and you'll notice that I was in UVs, not in faces or anything else. And these guys are just extra pieces that I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to add, right? So I'm going to remove the plane, and you can see those are all the pills and all the patches, and this is the box. And I really just want to make sure that everything remains really close together. It's just that there's a lot of pieces, and I want to make sure they're condensed. Unfortunately, some of the pills moved, so that's why they're not really aligned together. And I'm starting to group the pills together so I can quickly select them. I'm going to unfold them. And there is a button that's called Stack Shells, which I used to make sure that those were stacked. There we go. Put them in there to make sure they stay close. And then I'm going to try to squeeze them into the UV shell. Now, what I really was hoping was that everything was going to stick together, but unfortunately it did not. So now I'm going to go ahead and start separating them, but I'm going to try to keep them close. And I also felt like I didn't have enough space, so I'm just going to go ahead and rotate things, kind of like Tetris. This is like a funny little Tetris to try to fit it in. Into the space. So you're going to see that I'm trying to Tetris this little guy in, and then I'm going to start tweaking things so I can squeeze it in there, and that actually kind of works. All right, and there we go. Everything's in the 0 to 1 space. When you do a layout, sometimes Maya brings everything really close to the edge, and I'm not too big of a fan. So I'm going to go through and try to move some of the really close objects from the edge. So I'm going to go through and see if I can move them a little bit. I'm going to try to. And if there's a little space, I'm going to enlarge it. And that's basically how you UV map an Android. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you learned a thing or two. If you did, please like and subscribe. That is your message to me, letting me know that you like this content and that you want to see more. Please share my videos. UV mapping can be pretty challenging, so hopefully this video can help another 3D artist just like you. And it also helps the YouTube logarithm, which helps me create more content like this. Take a look at academicphoenixplus.com. There you will find free resources such as 3D models, references, ebooks, and so much more. So take a look at academicphoenixplus.com. Again, thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Keep creating, and I will see you next time. Since you made it all the way to the end of this video, I do have a quick little question for you. What is this background? If you get it right, you will get a little digital medal.